All right, let's jump right into it. Today we're opening up the files on one of the most deeply disturbing, honestly baffling cases in modern history. We are mapping out the unimaginable survival story of Elisabeth Fritzl. And our goal with this explainer isn't just to recount the events, but to try and truly understand how a deception of this massive scale was architected and maintained right under the noses of the authorities, the community, and even a completely oblivious family. So let's set the baseline for this nightmare.
The absolutely crucial point here is this staggering number, 24. For 24 years, a father kept the darkest secret you could possibly imagine hidden literally just a few feet below his family's feet. I mean, pause and really think about the sheer weight of that number. Almost a quarter of a century. Entire generations are born and grow to adulthood in that time. And throughout all those thousands of days, a horrifying reality was playing out completely undetected. Remember, this wasn't some crime committed in a remote, isolated cabin out in the woods. No, this was happening right inside a residential home, which required a terrifying level of daily planning to keep hidden.
Let's move into our first section, the monster's master plan.
So, how does someone pull this off? Well, it's a terrifying mix of professional expertise and absolute malice. You see, Josef Fritzl was an engineer. He possessed the exact technical know-how required to build a prison without anybody noticing. He didn't just dig a hole overnight. This space was secretly constructed over a period of several years. He deliberately built it as a completely soundproof dungeon. And honestly, the most chilling detail of the whole thing? It was located directly in the basement of his own home. He engineered a space where screams could literally never be heard, hiding it perfectly beneath the mundane, everyday life of his household.
Next up, let's look at the cult deception. Okay, so the psychological manipulation starts the moment he traps her. In 1984, 18-year-old Elisabeth simply vanishes. To the outside world, she's just gone. But then, a few weeks later, Josef produces these forged letters. He uses them to convince everyone, law enforcement, even his own wife, that their daughter had run away to join a religious cult. It's such a calculated, devious narrative, right? A cult explains the total lack of contact, it explains the sudden disappearance, and it effectively forces the police to close their inquiry. And this single, foundational lie was successfully maintained for 24 long years.
Which brings us to our next section. Life in the dark.
For nearly a quarter of a century, Elisabeth lived entirely underground. We're talking completely cut off from sunlight and the outside world. Try to imagine the psychological toll of that. A windowless dungeon where day and night just blur into one continuous, endless stretch of darkness. She was completely deprived of fresh air, the changing seasons, and any human contact whatsoever other than her captor. It was an environment precision designed to completely break the human spirit.
And here is a detail that is honestly just so hard to wrap your head around. 7. During her captivity in this dark, subterranean prison, Elisabeth actually gave birth to 7 children. 7 lives brought into the world inside a windowless room, delivered without any medical assistance at all, hidden entirely from the society existing just a few feet above their heads.
Let's examine how he managed this in Section 4, the double life.
The contrast here is absolutely wild. It perfectly illustrates the twisted reality he orchestrated. So, of those children born down in the basement, 3 were brought upstairs over the years. Josef claimed they had just been mysteriously dropped off at the doorstep by Elisabeth. Upstairs, these children were brought up living what looked like a completely normal life, viewing Josef as the perfect grandfather alongside his oblivious wife. But downstairs, 3 other children remained utterly trapped in the dark with Elisabeth, literally never seeing the sun until their rescue. He was simultaneously playing the benevolent patriarch up in the light and the tyrannical taptor down in the dark.
This extreme level of psychological manipulation, the absolute brazenness of living this dual life, is exactly why the case files and the media ultimately call him the monster of Amstead. It's not just the crime itself, it's the fact that he successfully hid these heinous acts while actively playing the role of a respectable, contributing member of society. He essentially weaponized a facade of normalcy to protect a core of absolute monstrousness. So we've seen the methodical engineering of the space. We've seen the careful manipulation of the narrative. But it begs the question, how do you actually break a 24-year lie? How does a perfectly executed deception, one that is held up against police scrutiny and time itself, finally unravel?
Let's get into the final section, the rescue.
You know, Josef could control the physical space, and he could control the narrative, but he absolutely could not control human biology. First, a sudden severe medical emergency happens with one of the older children down in the basement. It gets to a critical point where his rudimentary care just isn't enough anymore. A hospital visit becomes absolutely unavoidable if this child is going to survive. So he has to bring the child up to the surface. But the second that child enters the medical system, questions are asked. The story just doesn't add up. Authorities are immediately alerted, and finally the 24-year lie is destroyed, leading to the miraculous 2008 rescue of Elisabeth and the children trapped below.
To wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with this deeply chilling thought. The monster of Amsterdam hid in plain sight. The architect of this massive nightmare didn't live out in the shadows. He lived openly as a respected engineer, a husband, and a community member, hiding the absolute darkest of secrets right beneath the floorboards. It really makes you stop and ask, how well do we ever truly know the people living right next door? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and remember to always keep questioning the narratives around you.